Welcome to this explainer. I am absolutely thrilled you're joining us today. Go ahead and get comfortable. Maybe imagine we're just sitting by a fireside, about to embark on a really fascinating journey together. Today, we're exploring a deeply profound aspect of human nature. Specifically, we're looking at how the most educated, highly expert minds in a room can somehow become completely blind to an obvious truth standing right in front of them. We're going to bridge some ancient history from the Gospel of John with modern psychological science and uncover a hidden trap that, honestly, affects every single one of us.
Okay, let's dive right into this. Why do the most educated minds often miss the most obvious truths? It's a total paradox, isn't it? I mean, you'd naturally think that having more knowledge automatically equals having better vision. But the reality? Expertise can actually become a cage. When we're trapped by the pure monotony of our daily routines, or when we start getting puffed up by our own self-importance and positional power, our minds can just shut like a steel trap. We stop listening, we stop learning, and we start aggressively defending our status instead.
To really understand how this happens, let's look at an incredible historical hook from the Gospel of John chapter 7. Picture this: the religious elite of the day, the Pharisees, have sent their temple guards to arrest Jesus. Now these are hardened, disciplined men taking direct orders from the highest authorities in the land. But they don't arrest him. In fact, they're gone for days. And when they finally return, they walk in entirely empty-handed and completely bewildered. When their furious bosses demand an explanation for why they didn't bring him in, their only defense is this absolutely astonishing quote, "Never man spake like this man." They were just completely disarmed by the unique authority and the undeniable truth of his words.
Well, that perfectly sets the stage for Act 1, the context, and what we're going to call the paradox of boredom.
To make sense of this paradox, we really have to look at the environment those Pharisees were operating in. These guys were the ultimate, unquestioned authorities on the law. But their settled opposition was so rigid, so deeply entrenched, that they flat out refused to grant a fair hearing. They weren't looking for evidence, you see? They were looking for an execution. Their hostility wasn't born of logical reason. It actually came from a desperate need to protect their status. They were the experts, and here was this unschooled teacher drawing massive crowds. Trapped in the monotony of their prestigious roles, puffed up with pride, and literally terrified of losing control, they became completely, willfully deaf to the very truth that had so easily captivated their own guards.
And this brings us to a guiding philosophy for our time together today, a concept we call Papa's Take. Papa reflects on this historical passage and points out how beautifully the boredom paradox fits in here. Think about it. In times of boredom or heavy routine, when your mind naturally wanders, it can either lead to profound creativity and open you up to amazing new discoveries, or, under the sharp stress of a perceived threat, a bored and comfortable mind can just retreat into the blindness of pride. The Pharisees were so blinded by their own positional power that their pride totally overrode any creative thought or open-mindedness. They ignored the truth right in front of them, entirely at their own peril.
Moving right along to Act 2, the tension. Let's look at the actual science of monotony.
Fast forward to today. When we look at modern empirical data regarding workplace boredom, we find something psychologists call control value theory. Simply put, your daily motivation relies on two basic human needs: feeling in control and finding genuine value in what you're doing. When professionals face heavy constraints or a severe lack of autonomy, they don't just lose focus, they experience a highly destructive, specific type of boredom. It turns out, the intense rigidity of those ancient Pharisees maps perfectly onto modern research about how the human brain processes monotony and threat today.
Think of it like two totally different operating systems. On one side, you have the closed mind, perfectly embodied by those Pharisees. Science calls this low-activation boredom, mixed heavily with identity threat. For them, listening to new ideas offered absolutely zero value and actively threatened their social status, so they just shut down entirely. In stark contrast, we have the open mind, like our temple guards. They possessed what psychologists call a high-learning goal orientation. In everyday terms, they leaned in with deep, genuine curiosity. They were completely receptive to truth, no matter the source, and no matter how unexpected the situation was.
Which brings us to Act 3, the connection, and what we can call a division of hearts.
We're bridging the gap right here between that ancient council chamber and your modern mind. Think of the guards as a vivid metaphor for that open, curious awareness in your own life, versus the Pharisees, who perfectly represent the stubborn, defensive ego that we all occasionally have to battle. When presented with the exact same situation, the revolutionary teachings of Jesus, we see two entirely different internal processes unfold. The guards reacted with astonishment and a truly receptive mindset. The Pharisees, however, reacted with pure anger and immediate dismissal. The final result? The guards actually heard the truth, while the most highly educated experts in the land were completely blinded by their own pride. The data point didn't change at all. The internal processing did.
You see, in a healthy, curious mind, motivation is driven heavily by a sense of autonomy and a genuine value for the task at hand. But for the Pharisees, their fear, that powerful identity threat, swelled up and just devoured everything else. They completely lacked genuine value for the truth. Their entire motivational drive was hijacked by a desperate, fearful need to protect their position at the very top of the hierarchy.
But, and this is crucial, even in the darkest, most prejudiced systems, truth can spark a division. That brings us to the number one single voice of reason in that entire room of angry elites, Nicodemus. He bravely steps up and demands a fair hearing under the law, asking them, does our law judge a man before it hears him? He essentially proves that you do not have to surrender to the groupthink of the crowd or the arrogance of the experts. You can always choose to be the one person who asks for the facts.
Let's pull all these threads together in our final section, the synthesis, awakening to the truth.
We've traveled all the way from the Gospel of John to modern organizational psychology. But how does this actually awaken truth in our daily lives? Well, here is what you should really take away from all this. First, recognize the boredom paradox in your own routines. When your mind inevitably wanders, use it for creative truth-seeking. Do not let it calcify into stubbornness. Second, actively maintain that high learning goal orientation. Stay endlessly curious, just like those guards. Third, heavily guard against the blindness of positional pride. The exact moment you think you know it all is the very moment you stop seeing clearly. And finally, cultivate a true, genuine willingness to listen, especially if the new information challenges your current status or your deepest assumptions. Self-awareness is literally the only antidote to becoming the arrogant expert who misses the obvious truth.
We're going to conclude our explainer today with this incredibly powerful Papa-inspired thought, and I want you to really let this sink in. Pride overrides listening to your own mind, either from fear or boredom. Be self-aware of your own pridefulness so that you will not miss the truth in front of you. So as you go about the rest of your day, I'm going to leave you with this lingering question. When the truth finally speaks, are you busy defending your status like the Pharisees, or are you willing to just stand there and be astonished? Thank you so much for joining me on this journey today. Keep those minds open and keep seeking the truth.